Hi, boys and girls. This is Grandma Sheilla, and our story today is called Lion at the Window. The gentle rocking of the car on the uneven road and the warmth of the tropical sun made Johnny drowsy. Contented and half asleep now, he was enjoying the ride. Well, the night before, Dad had said he would have to go on a trip to Salisbury the next day. As his parents talked over the trip, 12-year-old Johnny was all ears. Can I go? Can I go? Can I go, Dad? He asked eagerly. Can I? We'll see, son, Dad answered. Well, the next morning, Johnny bounded out of bed and rushed into his parents' room. Can I go, Dad? Can I go too? Nodding his head, Dad said, if you'll make up your schoolwork when we return home. It wasn't long before his mother had everything packed and ready. About 10 o'clock, Dad returned from work. Little time was wasted loading the car and getting off on the long safari to Salisbury. The afternoon was hot and dusty. The wild animals rested in the cool shade of the thorn trees. Every now and then a lizard would run across the road. Johnny often wondered how they could run so fast. Sometimes they would run smack into a rock or a bank, and they'd still be all right. It was puzzling, but Johnny was feeling too comfortably drowsy to think of an answer. Pretty soon he said, Dad, we're lucky not to have many trucks or cars on the road. They make so much dust when they pass. For some reason, the road seemed to have more dust than it usually did. Yes, Dad replied. We can make better time this way. I don't like to chew dust. Me neither, Johnny agreed. Well, Dad knew the road well and was moving fast, taking full advantage of the lack of traffic. Once Johnny got frightened when the loose dust caught the back end of the car and caused it to skid as if they were turning a corner. They continued to travel as dust settled over the thorn trees. The sun was sinking fast now in the red sky. Occasionally, an antelope would show itself. Johnny was on the lookout for animals now. Pointing ahead, he asked, What kind of animal is that over there? From here, it looks like an impala, Dad replied. Johnny liked animals and wanted to learn as much about them as he could. Only the month before, his parents had given him a book on wild animals for his birthday. He hoped he would be able to see lots of different animals on this trip. Riding along, Johnny studied each animal he saw and tried to remember its name. By and by, Dad switched on the headlights. This made it more exciting, for the animal's eyes would be reflected by the lights. Pink eyes. Yes, that was a rabbit. Gray eyes. That should be some kind of a bug. Suddenly, as they rounded a corner, the whole road shone like gems. Impalas began to scatter in every direction. Some were dazzled by the sudden bright lights. Dad quickly switched off the lights to give the deer a chance to clear the road. Then he turned them on again. Where's the road? He gasped. Johnny stiffened like a board. Dad was fighting the wheel. The car was going sideways now. Rocks, trees, and big anthills were flying past. The front wheel hit a big rock. The tire folded around it. Then a crash. The car bounced up and stopped dead. Johnny was thrown against the dashboard. The light of the high headlights looked dim as dust boiled about them. Then came a sudden silence. Are you all right, son? Dad asked. Yes, I guess so, Johnny replied. Dad switched off both the engine and the lights then and fumbled for a flashlight. He climbed out and began to look for damage. Johnny found another flashlight and joined his father outside. Dad, you sure are lucky. There aren't any dents anywhere on the outside of the car except for the front bumper. Dad was busy under the car. That rock had made a big gash in the oil pan, and most of the oil had run out already. Johnny, he called, get me the tools out of the sack. I'll have to take the oil pan off. That last truck we passed won't be along for about a half an hour, I guess, Dad said. I wonder what I should do. He began loosening the oil pan. By and by, they heard the truck coming. Dad waved his handkerchief very hard up in the air so the driver would stop. Amid a cloud of dust, Dad coughed and sputtered, explaining the problem to the man. Could I get a ride with you to the next town? He asked the driver. Sure thing, the driver replied. Dad turned to Johnny. I hate to leave you alone here, son, but somebody needs to stay with the car. After giving Johnny some instructions and having a word of prayer, Dad joined the man in the truck. Johnny watched the red lights of the truck as they disappeared into the thick dust. He began thinking of his situation. He was stuck in the bush, all alone, miles and miles from nowhere, with wild animals all around him. At least there wasn't anything he could do to shirk his job. There was nowhere else to go. By now, the excitement of the accident had died away, and he was beginning to feel sleepy. Remembering he had seen his father lay the front seats back to make a bed, he proceeded to do the same. Before long, the bed was made, and he stretched out his tired limbs. The crickets and an owl were singing a lullaby. In next to no time, he'd fallen asleep. But not for long. Away off in the distance, he heard elephants trumpeting and stamping on the ground. Occasionally, a lion roared, sending a chill up his spine. For some reason, the lions seemed to have chosen the area where Johnny was as their hunting ground that evening. A herd of zebra stampeded, and Johnny knew the female lions had chosen their victim and probably had it down already. Johnny was now sitting up in his bed and peering into the inky blackness to see what he could of the action out there. Suddenly, he froze. His heart started pounding. His hair stood up on top of his head. He got goosebumps all over him. He began to shiver. The shivering turned to violent shaking as he looked out of the car window. Not 5 feet away from him stood the black-maned lion. 5 feet. The lion let out a great roar and let his mate know that he was waiting for his supper. The girl lions always get the food. Johnny threw himself onto the floor below the front seat, hoping the lion hadn't seen him. A swift, silent prayer of deliverance flashed to heaven. The shivering slowly subsided. And finally, sleep overtook him. When Dad returned, he found Johnny still cramped on the floor. "What are you doing down there?" Dad questioned. If you'd gone through what I went through, you might be down here yourself, Johnny said. He scrambled out and led Dad around to the other side of the car. There were some of the biggest lion's paw marks Johnny's dad had ever seen. Dad reverently quoted Psalms 34:7. The angel of the Lord encamps around those who fear him. Johnny turned to his dad and said, I think the Lord had a whole army of angels camped here around this truck. Don't you? Boys and girls, wherever you are, God can help you. And the angels are waiting for him to say, go there, and they will. Thank you, boys and girls, and I'll see you again next week. Bye-bye now.